Oh, hey, hey, brother, how's it going, man?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm awesome. I was just reading a little bit more about you.
Ha.
I'm kind of new to this whole podcast stuff and so on, but getting used to it.
Yeah, I must admit, you've got, by the looks of things, two platforms on going at the same time. Well, not platforms. Are you doing your
Exactly.
phone and laptop?
Yeah, because I wanted to have me here out in my pool here,
Oh, nice.
and this is a better place because my computer is kind of in a dark place. Um,
Oh, I see. So
uh,
you're keeping the computer inside.
light-wise. Yes,
Yeah,
luminosity wise.
nice.
Nice to meet you, man.
Yeah, and you too.
Yeah,
So,
man. I've been watching all this stuff, and it's been a while. So yeah, basically, this could already be part of the whole podcast thing, but yeah, you still wanna? It's already recording on the computer.
oh, cool.
Um, yeah, but we can talk a little before if you want, or whatever.
Yeah. Well, actually, so where are you now? Is this all yours?
Yeah, this is my parents' place. I live here with my mom, and I'm doing this business right now that is basically a coaching business with almost all the other stuff that you do as well.
Hmm.
From breathing to cold exposure to it goes through personal development and all that stuff. And then yeah, and before all of that, I was into permaculture design, ecological regeneration, and all of that. That's
Wow.
why I have this pool here, and you have the food forest out there, and then all the way back there, you have some chickens as well,
Oh,
and on
wow.
the other side back there, I have some ducks. And yeah, this house was the former market of this place where I am. This is Portugal, Lisbon, Rim Shore.
Ah.
and and besides of that, like I'm still opening up. Now it's kind of, you know, still, but I'm opening up an Airbnb, which is basically a house on the same piece of land with this
Very
market
cool.
house. Yeah. So
Very cool. So is that pool a naturally oxygenated pool, as in using plants to oxygenate it?
exactly. Yeah.
Oh,
I
wow.
have fish, it has shrimp, it has crayfish that I have eaten as well.
Wow.
And but it's not functioning properly. That's why you see there's like this it's not the level it should be higher because it's slightly leaking. And man, I've been so full of so many things right now. I've just finished the course, like
Mm.
the business accelerator. So I haven't had the time to to close that leak, and I'm not 100% sure if that leak is on on the place that I believe that it is. So, but yeah, it doesn't move from here. So the filtering system is kind of not working, but the
Yeah.
water is clear. It doesn't stink or anything. The taste is good. The
Oh,
fish
wow.
are alive, and I have also some frogs. And on one side it's all floating plants. These are
Oh,
water
wow.
hyacinth and salvinia, and then yeah. So yeah,
Um,
it's a lot of
um,
stuff, man.
and what about the temperature?
Pretty cold now. Now it's getting really, you feel the prickly. But I don't have a thermometer or I haven't taken the time to measure it. But it's cold that like you feel it on your almost on your mind. Not like a chest freezer or something, but probably around, I don't know. You work in Celsius or
Yes.
Fahrenheit? Celsius.
Celsius, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know, man. Probably I remember when I was a kid, it came to 9 degrees.
Oh, wow.
So
That is a good temperature.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I think when you start going towards that 10, 9, and below degrees, that you're going to get huge benefits just from that alone, aren't you? So that's brilliant. That's
yeah,
amazing.
Yeah.
I must say,
Yeah.
actually, before I forget, there is a guy that has just moved from Japan to Lisbon, who is, like me, a SOMA Breath instructor.
Oh, awesome.
His name is Paulie Nuttall. And I can hook you both up in case you feel like connecting, because there could be some good reasons for you both to connect.
Oh, awesome, man. Perfect. Yeah.
I'll make a point of reminding myself. So
I
yeah,
have
weren't
his
you in?
name.
So weren't you in Madeira at some point as well, or am I confusing things?
Yes, yes, I was. How do you know that? Did I comment that on one of my comments or something?
No, I think you must have had it on a profile on Facebook.
Oh, yeah,
I would
probably.
have looked at your profile to get a better feel for who you are. So I would
Yeah.
imagine that's where I might have spotted it. Hang on, connect, Karsten. But obviously, with a name like yours, I have to assume you must hail from Germany or somewhere similar.
Yeah. Yes, my father was German, my mom from Luxembourg.
Ah, right.
So,
But
but they met in the Algarve in the south of Portugal, and then, well, they found love and all that stuff, and then probably I was conceived in the Algarve as well, but they went to Luxembourg to give birth because of nationality. My father went through the Second World War, so he didn't want us to do military service.
yeah,
So yeah, in Luxembourg you have that privilege.
very cool. Now, I
Yeah.
will also say one thing. So the sound coming from your side is a little bit iffy in places. I can
Really?
hit, yeah,
Is that
it might be
might
that.
that be?
It might be, yeah.
Yeah, I might then. Thank you, man. I might then just turn this off.
The downside is that will only hear you from the phone, not from now on.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's fine for me. I mean, I understand you.
Yeah,
So
I can still hear you perfectly. Yeah, that might be better. I'm just thinking if you're recording this and if you want to use it for some kind of
yeah,
content, I think it might be better without that. It's funny actually. So I started this week some morning breath sessions for people, and I'm still very low tech. Despite me running a YouTube channel for 3 years, you would have thought by now I might well have upgraded my technology, but I'm very much a Luddite, and and so therefore I do eventually tend to upgrade things, but it takes me a long time. I'm somewhat reluctant. Anyway, I realized that my breath sessions do need some better technology because obviously I'm running them through Zoom. I'm connecting Tractor Pro software through Zoom, and that has this very slight delay in the first instance. And also the microphone that I'm currently using right now is probably okay in this kind of conversation, but it does make a few clicking sounds. And during a breath session, when people are meant to be in a nice, floaty, meditative state,
yeah.
it probably doesn't help to have these little clicks and things like that going on. So I am reluctantly now having to upgrade my kit. It kind of makes sense, doesn't it? A few of my interviews on my YouTube channel, I mean, you would have noticed now in my YouTube channel, I'm very relaxed about how I go about everything in life. And that I think is a good thing. But there are some things when sometimes that psychology and mentality doesn't work.
Like the leaves on the microphone or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for me, it's I'm very visual.
Mm,
So you see how the image moves, right?
mm,
Because I have one of those gimbals.
mm.
And this is a game changer, especially if you do like really beautiful imagery. Yes.
Yeah.
Like the other day, I filmed going onto the beach to go into the water, and man, like the image is amazing. Just the knot movement, the knot wiggly picture.
Mm.
Yeah. And
So
I
what?
have like a Samsung A70. The quality is pretty good.
Right.
And you know, this kind of quality with that still image is just amazing.
Yeah.
And a tripod I have now, so this is why I'm, you know, I'm just on my phone. So
Bear with me a second. I'm just going to turn. Hang on a minute. I just realised that this fancy light I've got to the left of me casts too many odd shadows. It's probably a bit better. Right. And so the permaculture bit, is that something that you're going to be putting aside now in favor of more coaching? What's your plan?
yeah, I realized, you know, well, let's put this in a podcast if you want.
Yeah.
But man, we can do you know, back and forth if you want.
Yeah.
I think would be really funny. Also because now you're making a lot of questions and you seem to be curious. So well,
that is the key to life. You know that, Karsten. That is the key
yeah,
to life.
I know, man. And I'm a curious bastard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the whole permaculture thing and the ecological design, you know, it kind of came up with it moved on everything, you know. I always had that kind of holistic kind view on things. I wanted to, you know, include everything, all inclusive, right? So, and I noticed that I was always hitting a wall with permaculture and with now not so much with holistic management because it's just started recently, but it's a similar model, broader a little bit, I believe. Permaculture goes a little bit more into detail regarding all the different techniques.
Right.
But I realized that I really needed to work from the inside out, and that I didn't have enough self-esteem, self-confidence, and all of that stuff that is really necessary to be able to work with people properly, you know? And, you know, the conversation that we're having right now, for example, when I was a kid, I had to call somewhere that it was a person that I didn't know. I got nervous. And I was sitting there like, oh, like starting a conversation and trying to just say, yeah, well, this is Karsten. I wanted to know this and that.
Yeah.
Something really simple. And I got really nervous with all of this. And now, like, it was a process for me to get out of this and just be confident enough to be talking to somebody that I don't know, that I've seen a lot of videos of. And you look like a big dude, you know, strong and so on and confident. And I would be shit scared if it was a few years back. And I noticed this with permaculture as well. Like I was always going cheap and not being able to communicate with people properly and bringing the message through. So yeah, I realized that I really needed to work on myself a little bit more, or actually a lot more. This was also related with the ending of many of my relationships, where I ended up feeling like a victim, probably because I had that victim mindset before, and I didn't, you know, and like 4 years ago, I really hit rock bottom and went into this, you know, I held myself properly, but I think if I was somebody else, I could have thought about jumping off a bridge or something, you know?
Really?
So, and I held myself and I just turned completely into myself. I just became egoistic or selfish in a very positive way, which was working myself up, you know, and toughening up. And just I started working out. Breathwork wasn't the thing yet. Although I was into Wim Hof already and I had done some breathwork, it wasn't something that I would do on a daily basis. Working out, I was already doing the cold showers, but this was Madeira, so it wasn't that warm, that cold. And then intermittent fasting, prolonged fasting as well, to 3.5 days, my max. And then, you know, also diet change. Like I was fruitarian before, and I started to feel the health effects negative on me, like skin, airiness, always feeling cold kind of, and then moving into something that I don't really care about my diet, and then moving into keto, and now I'm carnivore. So
Oh, really? Interesting.
yeah, 6 months in. Yeah.
Very
So
interesting.
yeah. So man, I'm loving our conversation. Shall we start the podcast?
Yeah, but you know what? All of this is golden stuff. You know, I'm a big believer when it comes to all these conversations. I always start them off with, I have no idea what your story is. Let's say if it is a healing story, you know, sometimes I do those. I much prefer a podcast or a conversation that just flows. They're much nicer to do. There's no bit of paper saying, oh, you need to ask this person this. There's nobody prompting you. And these little golden nuggets of chit chat tend to be the bits that are far more interesting for the viewer, I think. You know, the real
it's just like I was
me.
thinking about an introduction, you know, like, oh, this is David Florence. You know, he's a father, he's a dog owner, he's a tree hugger, and he likes to walk in the forest. And he thinks that we all should be entrepreneurs and something like that. And here he is, you know, and then we start the conversation. But man, we started with the conversation before, and so that's fine for me. I mean,
you could always do an intro separately.
Yeah,
something that I don't do, but probably should have done on a few of my interviews, because it would just be smoother, just a nicer way of introducing it. 2 seconds, because the children have just arrived in the house. Hang on a minute. I'm just going to close the door. Sorry. Yeah, so it's the conversation in which you let it flow, I think is far more attractive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned there as well something about my channel, and I have to say before we go on much further that I think my channel has changed a little in its direction. It was always about my evolution, just simply because I'd hit a wall, I had a bang to the head, and genuinely I needed to change. I needed to think and act differently about and how I interacted with the world and other people around it. You know, I in a way, I'm so grateful for that thing happening to me in order for me to see the world differently and act and figure this stuff out and then go on a journey as I did. So it was always about that. But a key vein running through it initially was all to do with the Six Figure Mentors, which was, it's an amazing organization, not too dissimilar to your course that you've just finished, I assume, I don't know, because I don't know much about the course you've done. And so therefore, initially I was promoting it because they have a very good affiliate scheme in which you do that. More recently, my channel has gone away from that whole idea. I am one for encouraging people to start their own business and become entrepreneurs, but I no longer want to put that message out because it's not about that now for me. It's more about, although that's what I'm doing, now my channel message is much more about how you can optimize your brain and body to experiences of states of flow, to feel much more alive, with energy, with a drive, with clarity, with focus, all these things that I never used to have. I now know I have confidence in saying to people, you should try this. But I never ever say, do this, this will work. I always say, much like you, I would imagine, my message is always, this worked for me, so it's probably going to work for some of you. I can't guarantee it, but it's probably going to work for some of you. And then there are some things that I could probably 99% say, if you do that, you're going to feel amazing afterwards. And a lot of that is due to breath work. You know, there are somebody on my little tribe in Facebook. I've got a tiny little Facebook group called the Tribe of Evolutionaries, and somebody's just put a message out there that they're now suffering long-term COVID. The poor guy is really going through it by the looks of things. I didn't want to give him any specific protocols to turn to because I don't know what it's like if you suffer long-term COVID. You know, I have no idea what that's like. But I do know that there are really good state changes that you can turn to, that if you're in a really low state, which he must be, You know, you're not going to be feeling mentally strong right now, but there are certain things you can do that automatically change your state. And a lot of it is breath work.
Yeah.
I'm sure you will agree. You know.
Yes. Not only, but yes, I believe that breath work is one of the parts, you know,
Yeah.
like, I started, you know, when back in the day, back in the day, like I think it has to do with my how my brain works or something. And with one of my best friends back in Madeira, we always made fun with this about me being a little bit Asperger or something like that. You know, like they thought that I had attention deficit when I was a kid and so on. But I always had this tendency of going really into something, like permaculture, like yoga. Like I learned about yoga, people would talk, oh yeah, this problem, you should be doing yoga, you know? I have a neck problem, do yoga. I have a cold, I'll do some yoga. And same thing with permaculture, or, you know, when I was on a vegetarian diet and all of that. So I had that tendency of becoming very dogmatic. And now I say, well, it works for me, and I think it might work for you as well. But back in the day, I would say, you should do this.
Yeah. Funny, isn't it?
You know?
Yeah. Well, you become an evangelist.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, I can see that happening. It kind of happened to me. I definitely became an evangelist about some of the stuff, especially the Wim Hof stuff. Because with Wim Hof, I mean, talk about a state changer. By the way, if I have a panic attack, I haven't had one for a long time, but I did have a couple last year because we were going through some really tough stuff. The one thing that I knew I could turn to that would change my state was the cold, a cold shower or an ice bath. And that's what I mean by state changes, things that you're really low. If you can push yourself to do 99%, you know, I'm fairly confident you will be able to change your state. However, it took me a while to figure that out. I was trying all the different practices. So if I felt a panic attack coming on, I would go and stand on my head initially, or I would try breathing, or I would try meditating. Meditating, of course, doesn't work. If you're about to suffer from a panic attack, you're not going to be able to switch this off. So meditating, forget that. I can tell everybody now, do not turn to that. It's not going to help you. Some breath work could, but to be honest, depending on how far down you've gone, you need something that really shocks the system. So that it, you know, and I can see why some people turn to pain. I can see why some people turn to drink, because rightly or wrongly, those are state changes. You know, if you're an alcoholic or if you like your booze, you know you can change your state really quickly. So I can totally understand why somebody would turn to those substances to change their state. But it's worth knowing, I think, that there are other natural things out there.
It's sedation. It's like I say in Portuguese, we have this really funny saying is running away with your ass from the syringe, you know, like we're always running away from the reality that we are in, which is the state or all the sensations that we feel when we, like, if you would say that this is why, you know, if you're not prepared for it, you shouldn't meditate if you're like dealing with so many sensations at the same time. Like if you were an advanced meditator, then it might make sense. You just look into it and then you know, you go through all that stuff, anicca and impermanence and strong determination and equanimity, la la la. But man, if you're not prepared for this, then don't do it, because it's a lot of sensations and it's a lot of input, and you need to make peace with it one by one. And it's just so much easier to just run away from it by, you know, sedate yourself with whatever. It might be booze, cannabis. Some people go for sex. Some people go for, I don't know, just become hooligans or just kick somebody's ass or something. So there are two things, I think, you know. One is trying to sedate yourself. The other one is trying to express it outwards, I think, as well. But the cold, I think, is much. I think if you would go for really, really strong or, you know, good run, it might help. but you need to put in that work. And the cold is just much quicker. Like if I get
Yes.
to my pool, I just bloop, I just go down, and then it changes almost.
Well, also there's a number of things that you need to do before you go for a run, unless you can force yourself to just step out the house and run in whatever clothes that you've got. The problem is that your brain will probably say, oh yeah, but I can't be bothered to put my kit on, I can't be bothered to put my trainers on, and then you just go further deeper into the spiral where even a run isn't going to help. But you're right, a run could help, but it depends where you are on that scale of that panic attack, because if you're right at the bottom, there's very little, I think, that will slap you in the face better than a cold shower.
Well, I have used in my lifetime, I have used psychedelics sometimes, and this would be one, other than the cold, but it's probably not the quickest, and you need some courage as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Like you shit your pants when you go in there,
Funny,
I've had some situations. I had a really rough day, and I had this tool at my hand, and I did it, and it's like I had a rough day because some chickens died. The cats had eaten one of the little chooks because one of the chickens had died. That was a mother. And then the next day, another chicken disappeared, and I was like, I'm gonna kill the cat. And I was really upset already. And then I did this. I sat down and I did this. It's one of that short sessions. And
the what session? Sorry.
Short. It's a short.
Oh, short.
Time.
Right.
Yes,
Sorry.
like a quick effect, short time session. And it snapped me out completely out of that vibe. And then I reconnected to that whole thing of, life, existence, or growth and death and destruction, and just being at peace with it, and that kind of took me out of it, and because I went way up and I got really scared also as well. But yes, I think for the normal people, I think the cold water exposure is just perfect, and the quickest and cheapest probably as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's you mentioned something at the beginning when you were describing your story, which I think is a really interesting statement. And I think it's only because you've chosen to go down the path of the inner world, to explore the inner world, that you were able, therefore, to come up with a solution that you did. As you say, for a lot of people, not most, for a lot of people, when they're in these states, they do the thing that is driven by the amygdala. They do the thing that is fight, fear, freeze related. And for a lot of people, it's not really necessarily fighting, it's just running away from the problem, isn't it? You're in that state, the rest of your brain is shut down, you don't have any rational thinking, so therefore you're not really associating these odd, poorly created statements in your head with anything other than just rage or whatever it might be. And so of course you go down the path of doing something that's not going to be good for you. Of course you're going to do that, but it's only when you start to explore the inner world that it's that questioning mind that helps you. Because if you're used to questioning all the time and getting used to hearing this but accepting it, as you said, then you're better able to make those decisions in those situations, aren't you? But you do need to go down this path of exploring the inner world to be able to make those better decisions. And that's why, when you see people making these poor life decisions, you can't judge in the main. It's only because they haven't chosen the path to explore other possibilities. In a way, you can totally justify many people's reactions and actions. I'm not saying all, obviously. Much of Trump's reactions, for example, might be questioned. However, I do think, in the main, normal people that make tough, bad decisions, in a way, it's justifiable. It just means they haven't explored things yet. They haven't explored the inner world to come up with better solutions. Anyway, I've gone into a long ramble. I'm sorry about that.
No, man, all is good. Yeah, there was an idea that I wanted to bring forth, but no, it kind of slipped. But what was it again? There are so many dimensions to this. You know, you have your self-talk, the way you talk to yourself, the influence of people around you that, you know, they say you become the five people that you spend the most time with. And I've been spending so much more time with people online than
I know.
offline, which is funny.
Yeah.
But really connecting to amazing people. Still. And then, you know, like, kind of lost it now. But you know, it's a lot of work. It's, you really need to take the decision of, you know, there is something going on. You really need to get in there, and you need to, almost like the Matrix, you know, you go in there, you see, oh, what is the program that is running, which kind of is self-talk and your belief system and all of that. And then let's change this and let's change this, and then start putting out the program or the spell or the language or the conversation that needs to get in there. And then, you know, you need to be repeating all of this all the time, the program that you actually want to be running, so that it gains momentum and the other one loses momentum.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, I mean, like, the cold is the one that breaks it, but then I think you need to continue on with some other practices as well.
Definitely.
This is why I was talking before, like, or the breath work, or the cold, or the intermittent fasting, and all of these others, and then the journaling and the, you know, the goal setting, I think, is something really interesting, especially in regards to the, what is it called? Is it called the reticular activating system? When you know, when you want to buy that car, you really love that car, and all of a sudden the car starts appearing all over the place. You're like, oh, why the hell is this car appearing all over now? And you know, like, all of these things together in that holistic way of thinking are, you know, like that really powerful thing, I think. And before I would have that idea of just, well, you do yoga. Yoga is the cure, and the what is it called? Panacea?
Yeah, panacea. Yeah.
Panacea.
Yeah.
So what was it that brought you into this? Like, what was that? You mentioned this wake up call for you.
Well, it's quite simple. I was running a small business, a recruitment business, with a friend. For years, I'd known that it wasn't my thing. You know, I just plodded along, and because it was mine and this other guy's business, that kind of helped in that, you know, at least we got to shape things and got involved in the business itself. But all the way along, you know, I was just letting life take me rather than directing and taking control of that life. And I wrongly assumed that I wasn't capable of doing anything else. And then what happened was a really bad year. We had a member of staff who was fraudulent, and then we had clients that weren't paying us. And by the end of the year, we had the Christmas party, the usual Christmas party, in which I got very, very drunk. And I think a few other things happened at night, but whatever did happen, I lost a good 5 hours that night that I still don't know what happened. All I'm aware of is that I was by the side of the road, and people kept walking past me, tapping my shoulder to ask if I was okay. And I was returning or responding to them, rather, saying, yeah, of course. In my mind, I was thinking, I'm perfectly fine. Why on earth are you tapping me on the shoulder? I was sat sort of legs in the road at this point, just on the curb. But this was about 5:30, 6 in the morning. So people were, you know, going to work. Gradually, more and more people were tapping me on the shoulder. Anyway, at some point, an ambulance turns up, paramedics get out, and I instinctively asked the paramedics, "Are you lost? Can I help you?" And of course, they then said, "No, sir, we're here for you." And I said, "What are you talking about? I don't need anybody." And then one of the paramedics got his phone out and he took a photograph of my face, and obviously it was covered in blood. So at some point I'd either fallen or something had happened. But I didn't know any of this. Because, you know, there were hours lost that I have no knowledge what happened. I still don't know. So anyway, it meant that I went to hospital. It wasn't that bad. A few cuts and bruises, blah, blah, blah. But what it did do was wake me up. Honestly, that very next day, I suddenly realized I'm a husband, I'm a father. This is not how a husband and father should act. And I think at the time I'd been watching a few YouTube videos anyway on the Wim Hof method. And literally the very next day, I thought, that is what I need. And I was describing this to somebody else, that back in the 14th century, there were a group of Catholics called the Flagellants who would whip themselves. You know, I'm sure everybody's aware of this. And in a way, I wanted to turn to the cold for that same reason. I wanted pain. I wanted shock. I didn't want to go from, like, you know, with the Wim Hof method, they quite often say, start with a nice warm shower, gradually get colder and colder. I didn't want any of that. I wanted pain. You know, I genuinely wanted it because I wanted it to shock me out of the state that I was in, and it worked. And I then the next day thought, right, let's try some of this breathing stuff. And that totally blew me away, as you can imagine.
May I ask you, were you into meditation or anything? Did you have any kind of practice?
I had dabbled with bits throughout my life. But in the same way that I had dabbled with a whole load of stuff. I dabbled with endurance. I dabbled with martial arts. I dabbled with being an actor when I was younger. I dabbled, you know, that was me, you know, and a bit of a curse. It's good to have all these little skills that don't really amount to anything because it makes for nice conversation. But at no point had I ever gone one route and made it a thing, you know. And I think that was partly this strange psychology that I had. And I think it had something to do with, if I went all in to whatever it was and it didn't work, then I was fearful of the end result. So that's what stopped me. I would see some success, but then I would put the brakes on. Or I would start enjoying it, then I'd put the brakes on. Hang on a minute, no, you don't want to go too far with this, because if it all fails, you know, then what are you going to do? It's that stupid psychology that we have, you know, when the brain starts talking too much. Anyway, so that was it. That was the start of everything. And at the same time, I then joined the Six Figure Mentors, which is it's more of a personal development business than anything else, but it is also a business that encourages you to start becoming an entrepreneur and developing digital marketing skills. And so therefore, after 3 months of doing that, I then thought, right, I'm going to start putting my journey, my story out on YouTube, because I'm learning stuff and it's having a profound effect on me. So I figure I may as well tell a few other people about it and see what happens. And that was it. And now, obviously, it's totally changed. Anything that it was really only meant to be me chronicling my journey, now it's turned into me gaining various qualifications. I'm a breathwork instructor, I'm a flow code instructor, I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. And so I'm gaining all these qualifications so that I can now officially, you know, with accreditation, start passing this on to other people. And this has become a passion-led approach, which is the thing that I've always wanted, you know, something that I'm passionate about, that I can make something of my life, you know, something I guess everybody's looking for, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. If everybody's looking for this. I know about me that I'm looking for this. And I think the reason why we are talking is because at least me, I started, and you probably as well, I've started looking for more of the people that actually are on that same vibe regarding this. And because I didn't really have a support group or anything, and I really had to reach out through the internet and all of these people that are looking for this. And then, you know, I have some friends that do some stuff, but yeah, they do a little bit here and a little bit there. but like I'm right now, like, you know, I'm really focused on this. I'm looking much more outwards, especially into the internet, to find more of these people like this. But so many people actually think that I'm really crazy to be doing all of this, and
Of course.
you know, well, whatever it is, even working out, which is funny, you know, like I have a little bit of a different physique, and people are calling me like a buff dude or something like that, and I'm like, I don't really think that.
Yeah.
But you know, like it is something where you always go into resistance, and you lean into resistance, isn't it? Most of these practices, especially like the working out, going into the cold, not eating, doing the breath work. Like usually when I sit there, you're like you don't want to immediately continue, is it? Or start up, you know. I remember right at the beginning when I wanted to do my run, and I would run barefoot, with the frost, just the beanie and gloves, like the other comment that I put on one of your videos. And I would be all ready, but I would be there at the window or at the door, and just like, I still have to do something, I think, but you know, just excuses coming up and then coming up and coming up. Or before I would go into the water, like I would stand here at the stairs, you know. I would stand here just like, oh, this and that and something. Where is the thing that I needed to kind of fix in this moment before going into the water? And you know, like you go through this every day, and you already know the conversation that is going on, and you just ditch the conversation and go right into the water or start your run immediately. And I remember going through all of this and, you know, taking my time, and kind of becoming, you know, the whole routine becoming longer and longer, because I wanted to add, maybe I do this as well. And I wouldn't lose time with the whole thing that I was doing, but the intervals, you know, during the intervals, I would procrastinate or do something or something that you know, kind of questions the whole thing. And or in the middle of the workout, your mind is like, oh, you should stop. I think that's enough for today. You can do it tomorrow.
Of course. And this is it. This is a brilliant tool, isn't it? And that's why I think the cold thing is really good, because every time you force yourself to get into the cold and experience the cold, you are effectively strengthening your mind. It is this, you become disciplined. If at any point you were less capable of arguing with this, in other words, and stopping this from chatting, the wonderful thing about the cold stuff is that just simply forcing yourself to experience it means that you're constantly saying, actually, no, I'm not listening to you now. And therefore I'm going to do exactly the opposite of what you're telling me. And so the brain has to adapt. It has to change its messaging system to you, because you're the one that's hacking it. You know, this is a brain hacking tool, isn't it? Let's face it. And that I found, I don't know whether you did, but I found that then filtered into other areas of my life.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was thinking already. You know, like all of these things end up going into all different areas of our lives. I started feeling just so much more confident with other people in general. You know, like especially after this whole workout thing, you're like, oh, you have all this tension, but you're like standing straight, and you just have, you know, Tony Robbins talks a lot about physiology. And how your physiology determines the state that you're in, and all of these things that cold or the workout, you know, you become all what's the proper word for this, like toned, right? And just with other people, then I would have this completely different or mindset, or just posture Especially in regards to confidence. Just I would feel so much more confident with other people. I think it has a lot to do with, leaning into that resistance and leaning into our fears and leaning into our insecurities and into the pain as well. And you know your limits, and you're always going a little bit further on your comfort zone and out of it. And so, all these other stress situations with other people may be in a conversation then become so much easier.
Yeah, there is a wonderful graphic. I think it's by a Professor Csikszentmihalyi. I'm going to have to send you the name of this because I can't remember how you pronounce it. And it shows how, in order to start seeing things going right in your life and to start experiencing those in the zone moments of clarity, those flow states, you need a direct relation between skill level and challenge. And so therefore there needs to be just enough challenge versus the required skill level for you to end up being in the zone. If the challenge isn't there, then you're very likely to become bored, even if especially if you've got the skill. So if you've got all the skill to do that task, but the challenge isn't there, you're going to get bored and you're not going to be in the zone. However, if you've got just enough skill and there's just enough challenge, then you're going to end up in that kind of that in the zone moment. You're going to get those aha, yes moments of, light bulb moments. And in a way, that's kind of a great tool to think of when you want to start changing your life. Because doubtless, if you want to change your life significantly, you're probably going to have to learn some shit. You're going to have to open the books, or you're going to have to watch some YouTube channels. It doesn't matter. You're going to have to learn some stuff. But if it's stuff that you learn that you happen to have a keen interest in, then it becomes easy to learn. Then once you've learned some stuff and you want to make something of it, that's where you need to apply the right amount of challenge for you to stay in the game. Because I don't know whether you've noticed this, Karsten, but there will be, I would imagine, a few people that have either subliminally or because you've suggested that it might be a good idea, followed some of the stuff that you do. I would say at least 50%, if not more, probably started doing some of the stuff that you do and then gave up, because that is the typical course of human action when it comes to all this stuff. You go through these moments of, yes, this is amazing. Then you keep going, and then all of a sudden, oh, what's this? And then, oh no, well, that looks good. And then you give up.
Fish in the water.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, what's funny is I'm not judging those that do that, because that was me. So, I think that's why I think a lot of the tools that you and I do are brilliant at creating clarity, focus, discipline, because you kind of need that if you really want to make a big change. Anyway.
I wanted to, because now it came to my mind the thing that I had forgotten before, which was, how much do you see? We kind of take these decisions during the day. I don't know if the chickens are too loud for you.
No, it's nice to have that kind of sound. That's cool. I like it.
So, how much does decision fatigue come into this? Like, if you are, because I have this morning routine where I do the breathing. I might go to the toilet before. I do the breathing, then I sit down to meditate. And then if I have a rough day, I might do rape, which is like a snuffing tobacco that you blow into your nose.
Peruvian,
roots you, it helps you rooting. It helped me with cannabis as well. And then I go for my run, and then I do my workout depending on the day that it is. And then I go into the cold water. Sometimes I go right after I wake up, I go into the cold water and then I do the breathing. and then I go meditate. So, and sometimes I feel like it might be a little bit too much in terms of decision fatigue, you know, like I get to a point where I might be, or maybe not, you know. What do you think about this? And how do you think this could be something, also like a gem for other people that have been having trouble in getting into something, but they don't do it because they're fatigued in their decision taking?
I think it's a really interesting point, because when you go down this route of exploring ideas, developing tools, gaining practices, methods, it's an amazing path to follow. The problem can be that I found this, and I'm not this anymore, that you can become very rigid in doing those practices, to the extent that it either leads to an obsession or it makes you feel down if you haven't done it. Whereas I think a better course of action is to have these tools. I call them in my armory. So I have an armory of tools that I know that I can turn to, that I've done them enough that I don't really need to think that much before I do them. And the way I go about it now is I've always been one for mixing up stuff anyway and experimenting. You know, I will try this with that and I'll see if you can combine both. You know, I'm always doing that, which actually has worked in my favor, because then it stops you from getting, Joe Dispenza talks about this a lot, about routines. They're great, but at the same time, they can be negative, because as soon as it gets into the subliminal, then it stops your brain from working at its best. So you know, you need to be careful with it. But whereas I think the key to all of this is to have these tools, but just know you need to filter them throughout your day at some point. So, for example, before, I would wake up at, say, 5 in the morning, and then I'd be quite religious about my routine. Now, I wake up, and I might actually start the day with a black coffee, rather than starting the day with the Tibetan rites, or starting the day with the cold shower. I mix it up now. And in fact, since doing this flow course, I now realize that as long as you go through the day engaging with nature, engaging with your fellow human being, preferably in the physical world, but as you said, you know, you and I are both doing this, talking to people a lot via the internet. Obviously, the preference is physical interaction, because only then do you get the really big benefits, but it's harder to do that nowadays. So you just need to go about your day, pushing, pulling, lifting, you know, that blue zone idea of exercise. You don't have to think in terms of exercise as well, is what I figured out, insofar as I've got this friend in Australia that's developed this, what he originally called HIPA, high intensity incidental physical activity. He's now calling it VILPA. He's a professor of epidemiology at Australia University. But the key to this is incidental exercise. So therefore, you go about your day not thinking I must exercise, but instead I want to go about my day having an incidental moment of high intensity movement. So I just want to raise my heart rate. All it means really is, okay, so today I need to go shopping. Rather than getting on the bus or getting a taxi, I'm going to walk home with both bags of shopping, and that's going to be part of my exercise. Oh, and look, there's a hill over there, and my house is at the top. Rather than finding some way of getting to the top of the hill, I'm going to run up it. So it's just changing how you interact with the world and how you think about your environment. At the same time, I might think, okay, I've not got into balance with my autonomic nervous system. I've not thought about breathing. So therefore, when I go for my walk, say walking with the dog, I'm going to do a bit of 4-4 breathing. I'm going to breathe in for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds. And that develops this heart coherence. When I bump into my fellow dog walking friends, I'm going to make sure I have damn good positive conversation with them. It's that is more important. Doing the things that are actually quite natural to us, but because of the barriers that we put on, inadvertently, subconsciously, we create these barriers that stop us from doing natural things. I think that's a better way of going about life, because then you don't have to think of kit. You don't have to think of specific things that you must do in order to be happy. What you do instead is think about how you intend to go through your day. I intend to go through my day making use of all of my senses, my auditory sense as I'm in the woods, my kinesthetic as I touch the trees, my chemosensory as I start to engage the inner pharmacy of neurochemicals that are inside my body. That, I believe now, is a really good way of going about your life, and it just makes it less stressful because you don't have to be specific every day.
Yeah, man, I love this. It reminds me of that when we were kids, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like we would play like crazy, and we would get really tired, become very sweaty, and it's I like and you can put this in everywhere, basically. I mean, like, have you played with your dog? Like really, like you go on 4 foot and you just
I
get
do that
crazy
most
with
days.
your dog.
Yeah. Honestly,
Oh man,
yeah.
you get tired in like 5 minutes. You're like KO, and it's really good exercise and also coordination wise and all of this. And it's just playing around, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very similar to American football training, as far as I can see. You know, when they all get down on their 3 points of contact on the ground and they're moving from left to right. You know, as you say, you do that with a dog. The dog's going to be much quicker than you, and as long as you've got a dog with not so sharp teeth, it's not too bad. But I do that. You're absolutely right. It's funny, and going back to, we can learn a lot from children, as you know. If you've got children, it makes it easier to learn from them. But even if you haven't, you can still think about what it was like to be a child, to remember how you interacted with the world. Because of course you didn't have these questions. You didn't think about what I'm going to do today. You literally had a friend turn up at your door that said, let's go and play in the river. Let's go and climb a tree. Let's go, or what I used to do, go and play on the building sites. It was much easier back in the 70s and the 80s to go and play on building sites. But you would do these things without thought. You know, there wasn't, oh, where's my to-do list? You know, you just interact with the world in a very natural way. And in a way, that's a really good way of looking at how you could live your life as an adult, to start focusing more around being playful, with friends, with your movement, with how you perceive and interact with the world. I think that's actually a really key thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, man, that balance between the planning and the flowing is that funny thing within it, isn't it? It's like because it's like two sides of the same coin. It's like you probably know a little bit about Alan Watts and the game of black and white and the whole yin yang thing. And in permaculture you have this principle. It's called increase edge, because on the edge is where you have a third ecosystem. Like you have water, you have land, and in between you have the edge. And this third ecosystem is more productive than the sum of the other two, the two that are bordering each other. Right. So, and I really like this idea. If you bring it into like spirituality or into just life in general, you know, like you don't want to be too altruistic. You want to be selfish as well. And where two of them meet is where, where the rubber hits the road, where you have the greatest yield. And I think it's the same thing with, planning and then flowing. And then planning and then flowing, and establishing the plan is like a guideline, is something that you okay, this might happen, this might happen, this might happen, so we plan this and then we flow with it. But then we go back into the planning. So I think it's really important to find that balance between both. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, definitely. No, totally, because made me think there that I am still too analytical at times. I'm better than I used to be, but I recognize that that is a part of who I am. And it can be useful, but quite often I find it's not very useful. But what is helpful is having a partner that recognizes that I'm analytical, that gives me a boot up the bum. So, for example, around some of the marketing that I've been doing recently to promote some breathwork sessions, I was getting far too in the detail of going, yeah, that sentence isn't right, and oh, that picture should be a bit different. And then my wife would just come in and say, have you not done it yet? That should have been done ages ago. Come on, just get that out there. It doesn't matter if it's perfect or not. And the funny thing is, this is a message I quite often tell others. But in a way, that's good, because none of us is perfect. I think there are a lot of people out there, I'm digressing slightly, but it's made me think about this. There are a lot of coaches, there are a lot of people out in the YouTube world, the Instagram world, that present these messages as if they are perfect, as if they follow this doctrine 100%. One of the things I quite often say, though, is to people, I haven't got this figured out yet. I haven't got it all figured out, but this and this and this works. It's probably going to work for you. And I think that's probably a far more helpful message, to know that whoever's making those statements is real, just like everybody else. None of us is perfect. Even the people that appear to have it figured out haven't got it figured out. Even Eckhart Tolle hasn't got it all figured out. You know, so I think it's recognizing who you are. You know, when I did a Myers-Briggs study years ago, it was helpful to understand some of my underlying traits as a human being. I realized it wasn't the key to me. You know, you do these personality tests. Of course, they're not totally who you are. Sometimes they're not anything like you. But quite often, some little nuggets of wisdom come out of it, and you think, actually, yeah, that is a bit like me, and that is a bit like me. But the key to all of this stuff, doesn't matter what sort of test you do, is to know that that's only an underlying vein of truth. It's kind of the key, the elements of you that were there when you were young that won't ever disappear, but you are always evolving. You are always changing. Oh, I've got a nice little pun there from my evolution today. So you are always evolving, you know, but as long as you know who you are, as long as you know your idiosyncrasies, you know, as long as you know, I can be a bit like this and I can be a bit like that, that's okay. That's the important bit. Because when you recognize it, it's much easier when you get like that. So for example, with me and my analytical behavior, it either takes somebody else to tell me that I'm like that, or I suddenly go, right, okay, yeah, that's my analytical side again.
So you get really nerdy with stuff, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, with the intermittent hypoxia element of breathwork, as soon as I read studies that showed that spatial memory improves when you start doing regular bouts of intermittent hypoxia, I then realized there's a very good reason how I suddenly developed this insatiable appetite for learning. I never had that before. I just delved, you know, into little bits. I was interested in things. Whereas as soon as I started doing the breathwork stuff, I suddenly developed this insatiable appetite. You know, I really just wanted to learn about this and that. So much like you, by the sounds of it, in your natural state, you've always been like that, by the sounds of it.
I don't think so.
You mentioned you going deep dive because of the.
It's funny, you know, like when I realized how much I am into nature, and this kind of came with my father giving me a book about bonsais, and me reconnecting with the pattern of the tree and reconnecting with plants, things that I liked when I was a kid, you know, like everything that I would do in permaculture, and also even the stuff that I'm doing right now would be stuff that I was doing as a kid. I was playing with water. I was collecting worms and snakes and snails and you know, making all these cultures and having ants and ants, what do you call it, in the glass thing.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, like an ant colony. I would have all of this, and this is the stuff that I'm doing now as well. So, but then, and this might sound funny, I believe that I was kind of a little bit addicted, but you know, cannabis connected me so much with that stuff, because I would smoke, and then I would just zone out in whatever subject it was, and I would stay awake until like 4 o'clock in the morning, eating up information, just like what, just watching one more video, and what about this, and what about this, and what about this, and really like zoning out into all these different subjects. But you know, like later on, I realized that obviously, like cannabis on a prolonged intake, or you know, it is not something that leads to general clarity and focus. And so I needed really to learn that it's a tool as well. You can use it in a if you use a proper intention and the respect, and I think, you know, you treat it as a spirit, just like the shamans do. It is a medicinal and spiritual plant, with respect and so on and all of this, then it can be useful. But, you know, you really need to get your shit together, because cannabis is, I see it's almost like a female spirit, and she's really gorgeous. But then she's very possessive, and if you start abusing her. So and then she takes a hold of you and your thoughts, and I felt like, you know, like confident and all of this stuff. I actually suffered that as well. But now, sorry, I just drifted off slightly into cannabis. But yeah, I think she was one of the things that have helped me to get into this, you know, becoming a nerd of going into all these different things and all of these different directions regarding stuff that has to do with, you know, changing the paradigm of human species on the planet during these times of change and difficulties, and also like you know, disparity between all these different levels of income and finance and hunger and so on, like all these different dimensions. But I wasn't like that always. What I wanted to bring up is that term of succession, because like I think all these different informations kind of came to us, but sometimes they kind of came to us, but we were not able to pick them up. How do you feel about this? Like when I heard about Wim Hof for the first time, I started doing it, starting, you know, taking cold showers, and I stayed on the cold showers, but then I discontinued the breathing. But now I'm back on the breath, and I really, you know, really like it, and I really want to go deeper into this, especially if going into holotropic breathwork. But I don't believe that it might have helped at that time, but I wasn't able to keep it, you know?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's at different points in your life, doesn't it, when things click. You know, just like the cold showers clicked for me at exactly the right time when I needed them. I remember when we were talking about evangelizing earlier, and when I started to do the Wim Hof method, I was evangelizing. I was telling everybody about it, you know, a few years ago, and expecting them to go, yeah, you're right, Dave, I should do it too. But of course they're not going to do that. They're not going to listen to, I mean, the people that don't listen to you anyway are the ones that are closest to you, of course. So your friends and your family don't listen to you because, of course, why would they? They know you. They know you for all of your frailties and your issues. So why would they listen? But yeah, I think you're right. When we are constantly presented with ideas, more so now than ever. And that is partly a problem of our age. That we have these amazing opportunities presented to us regularly, and very, very seldom do we actually grasp hold of those opportunities and make something of them or try them, because after a few seconds of being presented with this thing, at that point you have to grab hold of that thing then, because a few seconds later another thing appears and that looks really attractive, and then somebody else tells you about something else, and then, you know, so that is life now. It's harder now to actually follow any kind of discipline, to follow any kind of practice, because everything looks amazing. And every day you turn on the computer or look at your phone, you're being presented with another idea, or your friends are telling you about something new. So I think there are moments in your life when that thing, whatever that thing might be, it might be breath work, it might be meditation, suddenly makes sense. Your brain suddenly goes, this is what you need. And it's when you've probably got to a point where you can genuinely listen to your gut. Something inside you is sending you a message, and you've suddenly decided to listen to it. Because up until that point, that message has been sent to you regularly. You've been getting these internal emails on a regular basis, but most of the time you are deleting them and chucking them in the junk mail. But all of a sudden, something in that message suddenly relates. And this is also why when you look at digital marketing, for example, and the tools that people use to get us to try something, you know, that's why remarketing was created. That's why you have these algorithms that follow you everywhere. But just because you looked at a picture of a car, all of a sudden it's following you everywhere, not just in the physical world, but on the online world, because you've looked at that damn picture, and these little tools keep doing it. And in the same way, that's what happens internally too. You know, there are these messages that quite often in fact, we are being sent these messages from inside of us all the time, but most of us don't ever listen to them until something happens. And then we go, actually, I should try this, as if it's the first time you've had that message.
It's funny, like this analogy that you're doing right now, or that you're showing right now with, you know, it's again, this whole idea of programming, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just like the neuro-linguistic programming.
Yeah.
But of the algorithms that we are send these messages that are kind of in the background, but we're not really paying attention to them.
Yeah.
And we don't have, like, it's like that email thing, you know, like, oh, it could be interesting, but I don't have time now. So you delete it, or you just, you know, how many unread messages do you have on your Gmail or on your email? Yeah. Like, I usually have, I don't know, 500. I don't even pay attention to that, because there are so many emails that I don't even open. Because I know that it's just one of those places where I have subscribed to and so on, and I still want to remain this contact, but I don't really have the time now, so I just leave it. And I think it ends up being the same with you know, with ourselves, especially if we're just paying attention to the usual world. This is where decision fatigue comes in again. You know, like you have this thing, you can decide something, but you've had so many decisions over the day, like, what are the clothes that I need to wear? What is the, you know, what is the work, the chart, the task that I need to do today, and I need to call this guy and this guy, and then I have this meeting, da 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 da. Nothing that really interests for your, you know, personal development or life, but just for your income, right? And then when it comes to you, you're like, maybe I just watch some TV, or just, you know, just have a pint in the bar or in a pub. So, you know, this decision fatigue then comes in again. But yeah, it's that's why these tools, I think, are also so powerful. The meditation and the going into the cold, and, you know, like getting in touch with yourself again, into these deeper areas. Now, probably breath work is one of the most powerful right now, from what I understand. You know, getting in touch with all these things, and then, you know, reconnecting to your intuition, and then thinking, like, probably this is not the best thing to do. You know, your work, or your, you know, your job and your relationship, or your friends, or, you know, this thing that you've been doing, like, I don't know, maybe drinking or smoking weed or something. And then, you know, like, you need to get out of it again. Now, this is probably where the ice comes in back again. But
well, you know what the funny thing is? All of these practices that we're talking about now, all these things that people are doing, when we lived in a tribe, our lives were incredibly simple and beautifully so. And therefore, there weren't practices, there weren't tools, there was no exercise. You just lived. And if in any way we can get back to that, I have to be realistic. How it's very difficult to get to that point if you have a family and you need to earn money like most of us. However, I'd have to say, if you're a billionaire, you can create that straight away. So you have no excuse. If you're a billionaire, you can go back and create your life so that it's so simple. But if you're not that, like most of us, it's very hard. But in a way, it's helpful to think about what it would be like, or what it would have been like had we lived in that era, in the sense that we all had a role and it was very simple. And let's say you were a man and therefore your role was quite simple, to go out and hunt and bring back food. That was it. Once you'd procreated and created children, you didn't have much else of a role. Rightly or wrongly, I'm not saying it's a good thing necessarily, but it was simple. And when you got back, you would sit in your tribe. It was all natural. Nobody thought about it. It wasn't, oh, we must socially interact. It was just going back to your tribe, eating the food that you'd caught and sitting in a circle. And then there would be a shaman or be a leader of some sort. And you would sing, or you would doing some sort of dancing, and it would end up being meditative. But nobody was thinking, this is great meditation. Nobody was thinking, this is great exercise.
I love this tool.
Yeah, exactly. It was just, you were living and therefore interacting and doing all these things naturally without any thought. Your life was simple. And therefore you lived in a much happier state. You'd have to. There was probably very few arguments, I would imagine. I know I'm probably turning this into a utopian view, but I'm making an assumption about this that I think is probably near to correct. There's lots of research, and there was a great book I read recently where they were putting the point across that, or the assumption that it's very likely that in our tribal communities, there was no idea of, obviously there was no idea of power, there was no idea of possession of things, of goods, because there didn't need to be. So therefore there was no idea of invading your fellow tribe until we created agriculture. Agriculture was the killer really of the human species to an extent. Up until that point, you just had enough food to survive for the day. So therefore, your little community were quite happy there. You might have interacted with another community a few miles away, but you didn't have to. And there was no point trying to steal any of the stuff because you didn't need it. It was just simply living. You know, it would be lovely to be able to create a world like that, wouldn't it? You know, I don't mean a whole world, but on a micro level, being able to bring together people of a similar mindset, living together in a simple way, owning the land, creating the food that you ate. You know, getting as close to that as is possible that's realistic. That would be a key goal.
Love it. Yeah, this is, you know, I follow this guy because of the carnivore diet that I'm on. This guy is called Saladino.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I saw him on Joe Rogan recently. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And like I've been following for longer already. And he always talks about, you know, he started putting this hashtag out called the remembering, which is us getting in touch with our humanness again, which was, you know, there were no warm showers. So we would definitely bathe in the ice cold water, probably. You know, we would have to run for our meat or for our food. If we didn't find food, we would need to do intermittent fasting, probably prolonged fasting. Yeah. And this was something completely normal. And then, you know, that whole stillness, no music, no entertainment, probably the music that you do as a tribe sitting around the fire. You know, you would have your circadian rhythms very much respected because there's no sun out. Okay, we all go to sleep. Yeah. And when the sun comes out, okay, let's wake up, right? And we're just completely off off track regarding this, isn't it? Like we have just warm showers almost exclusively. We have light at night, especially all these screens and all that stuff with the blue light spectrum that is not supposed to hit us really, and keeps us awake. And then also, you know, like the abundance of food. We never get cold really, and if you get cold, you might get a cold.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's really funny how we. Yesterday I was talking to my girlfriend and I was saying, it's really amazing how we got so completely off track from so much thinking.
Yeah.
And so much trying to solve problems or situations. And we created we solved a problem which created so many other problems
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah. Things that are meant to make our lives easy aren't things that make our lives easy.
Yeah.
In the main, things that have been created to make your life simpler are the exact things you should not be buying or consuming. And in fact,
so actually, they really make you the life more complicated, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you're dependent on something.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's like nowadays the cars are so advanced that you pay your ass off to just, you know, get the doors calibrated or something. I don't know. Yeah. You know, things are so just overcomplicated and so much technology. So, you still want to say something about this?
Well, I was just going to say, I was going to say actually that I probably need to go fairly soon. But one of the things to do with cars that I made a decision during my journey, I pretty much got rid of that materialistic need, which has really helped me. But also, when it came to cars, I accepted that I might need a car. But then thought, again, this came with the whole getting rid of the materialistic need, that before I was often driven by the wrong things that caused me to think I needed a certain vehicle. Now, so a couple of years ago, I also bought a very old Jeep. And I was really proud of myself for buying this really old Jeep, and I loved it because it just bounced around, and because it was old, it didn't have many electronics, and therefore, so in my mind, not a lot can go wrong with it. Anyway, something did go wrong with it, and it's now going to have to cost a lot of money to fix it. So my then new concept that I've carried through for a year now is to make a conscious decision to only spend £1,000 on a car, with the idea that if you can keep it going for a year, you're onto a winner. And so that's how I now go about, by the way, car buying. I still have the car, by the way, that's cost me £1,000. It's lasted a year, so I'm going to still keep it going. And in doing so, I would have spent far less on that car than anything else I might have done in the past. But just going back to that whole materialistic thing, that is a really good tool to start working on, because ridding yourself of the decision making that you quite often fall into due to marketing really helps clear up some space in your brain. You know, I don't need that. I actually don't need this. And part reason, you know, we were having this conversation earlier. I was saying I'm a bit of a Luddite when it comes to tech. So I'm very basic when it comes to all the technology I use. And sometimes actually that I do come unstuck with that. And hence why with my breathwork sessions, I do need to upgrade some of the technology. But that's partly why I'm like that, because I got rid of the materialistic need. A lot of people think, right, I'm doing a podcast. I need a new Apple Mac. I need a new this. I need a this and a this and this. You probably don't need half of it, though you do, I realize now, need some of it. So anyway.
It's called appropriate technology.
Right? Yes, very good. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think you're running out of time, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm loving our conversation, man.
It's a good chat, isn't it? It's a very good chat. I love it too, and we should do more. I was going to ask you actually. I'm going to be, well, hopefully, if it goes ahead, attending Boom Festival
Oh, wow.
next year. So I was obviously going to be going this year, but I'm now going to be going next year.
But as a guest, as a boomer, or as a teacher or something?
Oh, I'm just going to get fully immersed as a boomer. I thought about signing up as a teacher, and then I thought, no, that's not what I want to do this for. I want to actually have the experience. I've never been there before. I want to have 7 days experience of just totally getting immersed in the whole thing. So that's what I'm doing.
Awesome, man.
Have you been?
Yes, just one actually. I'm very much into psychedelic trance music and all of that stuff.
Oh, brilliant.
And Boom is very much into permaculture design as well.
Yeah.
And very much into ecology. The dry toilets or compost toilets with, I think they might be using this bokashi system, which is like an anaerobic way of dealing with your shit. And then basically all of this becomes compost on the land, which is really nice. So all the shit that people leave there actually stays there and becomes more fertile soil. So and this is just one aspect of it. So this is the whole. I know one of the co-founders of the Boom Festival, and the whole idea was really cultural, and then it really went full on into permaculture and ecological regeneration and so on. So
it looks amazing.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm saying that is that you never know. We might get an opportunity to meet face to face.
Yes, man, definitely. When this whole idea that people have right now about this specific cough might kind of go away.
Yeah.
So I think where can people find you? So you have your homepage, which is theevolutionofdave.org, is it?
.net.
.net.
Yep. My YouTube channel is a good place to start, just because there's a whole load of stuff out there. But also there's people can come and join the tribe of evolutionaries, and that's a nice little Facebook group where everybody in there is trying to enhance their life some way. And it quite often invites some really good conversation around, I've got this problem, I'm suffering with this, anybody got any ideas, that kind of thing. So it's quite good for that. Or just send me an email, david@daveflorence.com. I'm going to be doing more breathwork sessions. I've got a new course coming up as well, which is all about optimizing the brain and body to start experiencing those flow states, incorporating everything I do. Breathwork, calisthenics, bit of yoga, meditation, making use of binaural beats. And in fact, I was going to say, actually, SOMA Breath is a really good one you might want to just have a look at, because for people that have tried meditation and thought, I can't do meditation, for people that have tried breathwork but didn't really like it, this is a way of combining both. Breathwork to music that's quite euphoric at times. It's quite engaging. You're breathing in a rhythm, so you start developing this coherence and balance inside, with the autonomic nervous system. And then you've got these isochronic tones running in the background that elicit certain brainwave states. So you've got all of this rolled into one. So it's a brilliant thing to do. And it's like my friend said when he tried it the other days, he said, he used a swear word straight away. He used the F word. He said, yeah, what? This is amazing. I've never been able to meditate before, and I've now finally had this wonderful experience. So I'm only saying that because I am a SOMA Breath instructor. I'm not suggesting people should try any of the stuff that I put out there, because there's loads of stuff out there, but it's worth looking at.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I've been doing the breathing to music as well. It's amazing. I really love it. Yeah. Well, there's one question that I had to you. Which is specific about the breathing. Like I've been doing a little bit more probably onto the simple way that Wim Hof does it, but I've been doing, the exhale, and then I hold, and then I do the inhale, but then I hold again, but I don't do 15 to 20 seconds. I go to whatever, as long as I can. why is usually the holding of the breath just 15 to 20 seconds?
Yeah, that's
Is there
interesting.
a reason for it?
Yeah, so I think because this is still early, I think if you look at pranayama and tumo, where a lot of this stuff comes from, there isn't necessarily that absolute specific timing. And in fact, Soma breath, when you do that, so initially with the Wim Hof method, I followed the doctrine, as you say, the protocol around the inhale breath retention being only 20 seconds or so. With Soma breath, they actually suggest you continue that until you feel less comfortable, and therefore exhale. And I think therefore that is a better way of looking at it, in the same way that you should look at all of the breath work. I've seen a lot of people wrongly doing the Wim Hof method by forcing it. So they're doing these big bellow-like inhale through the mouth, and of course people pass out when they're doing like that. They're forcing it, you know. With Soma breath, it's much more gentle, and it's very, very specific. You can breathe through the mouth with Soma breath, just like Wim Hof method. But of course, if you read The Oxygen Advantage, if you read Breath by James Nestor as well, you'll know the more you breathe through your conch, your nose, the better off you're going to be. And therefore, most of the breath work that I do, I choose to breathe through my nose on the inhale, exhale through the mouth. And certainly you're going to get a better oxygen uptake by using this. But that exhale breath retention, which is the really interesting bit when you start getting into that kind of breath work, that obviously you just keep going for as long as you can. And a really good trick, actually, let's say so you've been doing the hyperventilating bit, and with Soma breath, it's to a rhythm. And so quite often it's either a 2-4 rhythm, so in for 2, and then exhale for 4, or it could be 4-4, it could be 4-8, all these different breathing patterns. Then the music, you're then told to exhale all the way and hold. When you're in that the exhale breath retention phase, this is the intermittent hypoxic bit, and this is where the really interesting physiological benefits occur. And what you can do, at the first point when you get that urge to breathe in, you can do a short inhale, exhale. That's what I teach people to do, a quick and then hold. That prolongs that breath retention. And on that second phase of the exhale breath retention, after you've done the inhale, exhale, short, hold, you then get this, I do anyway, get this another kind of sensation where your body's going, oh, okay, you're pushing me a bit further. And you suddenly get this little rush over your body. It's a lovely feeling. And then what you can do it, then when you get the next urge, another really good tip is to then, at that second urge, start counting from 10 down to 1. And that helps prolong it that little bit further. But all the while, whenever you're doing all of this stuff, when you start doing it initially, you have to go easy with it. Take it easy, a little bit at a time. People, especially men, get really obsessed about the time of their breath hold. That is, in my opinion, the wrong thing to do. Yes, over time, you will be able to increase your breath hold, and that's interesting. Same as if you were to do free diving breathing, which is a different kind of breathing style, and it's not exhale breath retention.
And it's also not hyperventilation, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, because that's wrong. You don't want that kind of response physiologically.
Yeah, you're going to pass out in the water. Yeah. You want that.
Exactly, which is what people did, and people died doing the Wim Hof method, didn't they?
I don't know. Like I didn't.
Yeah, because, well, stupidly, I think it was nobody's fault other than the individuals concerned, that they'd wrongly assumed that they should combine the cold water with the breathing. And of course, I'm laughing, but I'm not laughing at them or the situation, more than the stupidity of the whole thing. That unfortunately, some people did pass out in water, and I think one person or two people died. So where was I? Yeah, so the exhale breath retention, you can extend it, but at the same time, with all of breath work, don't force it. Take it easy. Start learning how to listen to your body so that you know how much you can push it. You're going to feel the effects straight away anyway. You're going to get the physical benefits straight away, so you don't need to force it. But you will find that you can hold your breath longer, and that just is quite interesting.
Awesome, man. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't want to hold you back any longer. Yes, man. I really loved our conversation.
Me too.
Yeah, and we should do this another time again.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't know if I have any other question, really. Do you have anything that you still want to say?
No, I think that's good. I think we've covered so many subjects there. That's really good, a really good chat.
I really want to go deeper into the whole breathing because there are so many breathing techniques. And you know, because they all have their validity, I think. You know, from the fire breath, from the tumo to the fire breath of the yoga or pranayama to the, you know, this supernatural breathing like Joe Dispenza is also very interesting.
Yep.
Especially that whole thing of, you know, contracting your underside, basically the three energy.
Mula Bandha.
Yeah, exactly. But the
Perineum.
You know, the root chakra, and then the belly button, and then the solar plexus, these three. And then, you know, with that whole effect of the piezoelectric effect on the pineal gland and so on. So yeah, like this could be something really interesting that we could go into if you want. One of these days again. And you know, I want to know more, man. I really like all of your content and your vibe and how open you are, and basically you're doing all of these experiments and sharing them with people.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing yours.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I've been doing some stuff. I'm still just really getting started and getting used to you know, producing content like on a regular basis. And also this is also something new. Basically, this is episode 2 of my podcast. So
cool. Brilliant.
Yes. So the first one was actually a friend of mine who, when we met, she was on a vegan diet, just like me, but almost like vegetarian diet as well. And she had health problems. She has ankylosing spondylitis. And now when we kind of reconnected again about, like, I don't know, maybe 6 years after, both of us are on a carnivore diet, and she has healed her ankylosing spondylitis. So, and yeah, she's on my first episode. I haven't launched it really yet, but this is going to be out soon. And I'm really excited about our meeting and our conversation. It really was because I kind of dipped myself. I extended myself a little bit too much on your group, I think. So,
and like I said to you, you know, I didn't have a problem with that unless people, you know, I think it's really important with our group that it just becomes a place for people to engage.
Yeah,
so I'm just very mindful. I don't mind people promoting their stuff so long as they're also big at engaging with the group. And but I must admit though, I've done less with the group over the last couple of weeks because I've been trying to create some other stuff. But anyway.
But really, yeah, this is the whole reason, you know, we really got in contact, and I then realized, well, you're getting in touch with me, so, you know, I'm in touch with you, and you're somebody that I really like your content of, and your naturality. Yes, man, thank you so much, David. It was
no problem. Thank you.